You ever notice, like in movies, when you can tell something's wrong
Yeah.
just by how much a character's hands are shaking?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're diving into that today, but like for real,
Yeah.
alcohol withdrawal tremors,
Right. Right.
or as most people probably know them, the shakes.
It's funny how those little details in movies they actually do reflect something real, something really profound about how alcohol affects the brain.
Exactly. And whether you're just trying to live a little healthier, or you're, maybe worried about someone or even if you're just plain curious, this deep dive is for you.
Absolutely. It's more than just, a shaky hand here and there. It's a window into how alcohol like really truly impacts the brain.
So let's break it down. We're talking about those tremors, right? The uncontrollable rhythmic shaking. You see it most often in the hands, right?
Right, right.
It's almost like trying to thread a needle after way too much coffee,
Right.
but like way more intense.
Yeah, and it's not always just the hands either. Imagine those tremors, but they're affecting your head, your eyes, even your voice starts shaking. Like even having a simple conversation
Oh,
suddenly becomes like this huge challenge.
I never even thought about it affecting speech.
Yeah.
That must be incredibly isolating.
It is, and that's exactly why understanding all this is so important. It's about recognizing just how big of an impact alcohol can have on someone's life, and not just in those, immediate physical ways.
Yeah, yeah. This isn't just like, the after effects of a party gone a little wild.
Right.
This is a much bigger conversation we're having here about how alcohol affects the body.
Precisely. And this is where the science gets really interesting. Those tremors, those shakes, they happen because when you use alcohol for a long time, it actually changes your brain chemistry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when someone who's, been drinking a lot, maybe every day, and they just stop out of nowhere, their brain basically goes into shock. It's like slamming on the brakes when you're going, 100 miles an hour.
Ouch. So like the brain gets used to working with alcohol always there, and then when it's gone, it's just like,
Hmm. He's like yanking the rug right out.
oh, hold on, wait.
Exactly. Exactly. The brain's trying to, find its footing again. But in the meantime, you get those withdrawal symptoms and the shakes. Yeah, that's one of the most obvious ones.
And most of the time, these tremors, they're a symptom of something called alcohol withdrawal syndrome. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's basically a whole bunch of symptoms that can show up when someone stops drinking cold turkey. And it's not just the shakes. We're talking, anxiety, fatigue,
Oh, right.
insomnia even, and the list goes on, unfortunately.
And that's actually where things can get even more serious, because we haven't even gotten to delirium tremens yet.
Right, right. DTs.
DTs. That's a whole other level.
Yeah, DTs are they're really serious. Like they can be life-threatening.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember those tremors, those shakes on their own. They're not usually like going to be fatal,
Okay.
but they can be a warning sign. Like if you ignore a cough for too long, it might be something worse is going on, right? It's
Right.
kind of like that.
So how do we know then if it's, just the shakes, like after a long night, or if it's something more? I mean,
Yeah.
we've all had those rough mornings.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So how do we tell?
It's a good question. And honestly, a mild tremor after a couple of drinks, totally different from the kind of shaking we see with withdrawal.
Okay.
Those tremors, they're usually a lot more intense. They last longer, and they come with other stuff too, like really bad anxiety, feeling sick to your stomach.
Oh, wow.
Some people even start seeing things.
Wait, hallucinations? You're not talking about like the room is spinning kind of thing.
No, not that. I mean, actually seeing things or hearing things that aren't really there. That's where you got to take it seriously, If you see someone going through that, or if it's you, you got to get help. Like call a doctor. DTs, they can be really dangerous if you don't treat them.
This is a lot to take in, and it makes you think about all those things people say about this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, is it true that just one shaky hand means someone's like an alcoholic?
Oh man, that's one of those myths we got to bust right now.
Yeah.
Tremors, they can be a sign of withdrawal, that's true. But they can also be from other stuff too. Stress, being anxious, your blood sugar's low, even too much coffee can do it. It's like your body's trying to tell you something's up, but the message itself doesn't always give you the full story. You know what I mean?
Right, right. So how do you know then if it's something to be worried about? Like, should you just go to the doctor anyway and let them figure it out?
Talking to a doctor, that's always a good move. They can figure out what's causing it and what to do about it. It's not just about making the tremors stop, it's about getting to the root of the problem, right?
Right, absolutely. So we've talked about what it is, why it happens, even busted a few myths. But what do we do with all this? It's kind of a lot. This is where I think, you know, remembering that knowledge is power really comes in handy.
Oh,
Eh,
absolutely.
It's not about getting overwhelmed. It's about knowing what we're dealing with. So, like, if you're listening to this and you're worried about, yourself or someone you know, please, there are people who can help. There are resources out there. Talk to a doctor. Look into support groups.
Exactly. And even if you're, just here because you find this whole thing like really interesting, that's awesome too. I mean, the more we all understand about, how alcohol affects us, our bodies, our brains, the better choices we can make for ourselves and the better we can support the people we care about.
Right, right. And it kind of makes you think twice about all those, jokes people make about hangovers and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
we're talking about serious stuff here, real health problems.
We are, but there's also, there's hope too. People can recover from this and there's help out there. You don't have to go through it alone.
Yeah, that's a really, really important point. And it just makes you realize we spend so much time talking about, like, your liver, your heart, all that, but how often do we really think about what alcohol does to the brain?
Right. And it's easy to forget about, but when you realize that something like just having a couple of drinks can mess with something as basic as moving your hand, you realize just how powerful of a drug it is and how much it can affect your brain.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. The brain is it's an amazing thing, but it's also really complicated, and figuring out how alcohol affects it, well, that's a conversation that never really ends. So keep learning, keep asking questions, and remember, you're not alone in this. This is something a lot of people are dealing with. Until next time, everyone, happy diving.